Hey, welcome to American Reversion. I'm Steve Smith. How are you all today? I kind of took yesterday off. Hope you all had a great Easter Sunday and a good weekend. We did. The kids are home today from school because I don't know why. The teachers needed a day off, a couple of days off. So if you hear kids in the background, that's why. Those are the kids, being kids, and I love it. I love those days when they're not in school because we get to do more things as a family, and we're looking forward to the summer break for that. Have you wondered exactly what it was that caused the collapse, the beginning of the collapse of this country? I know you probably have. I'm going to talk about that. I came across an article, we're going to be talking about it later, that really illustrates and hammers home one of the central issues, the very core causes, I believe, in the collapse, the destruction of our country, because it destroyed the families. First off, let's hit, by the way, welcome to everyone. Welcome to all the new people. We're just continuing to grow both on YouTube and on Patreon. It's great to have you all here. If you would like to support the channel, there is a way to do that. And we have a Patreon channel. I put a link down here, and you can come be a patron over there. You can come be a member. I put stuff over there in addition to what I put here on YouTube, or if you're watching on Patreon. I put more over there than I do on YouTube. And let me know something also. If you are interested, now I've put quite a bit of these things over on the Patreon channel of Integrative Preparedness, my main channel, having to do with, if you're up to speed on, I have to be very careful how I say this. First off, the venom situation. Secondly, the figures that are finally coming out of the military. There are 3 military officers who are covered under the whistleblower category, who are coming out with information about the increased number of deaths in 2021 over and above what they would have expected. If you're interested, I put one over here on our Patreon, on the American Reversion Patreon site. Again, if I didn't mention, the link is down here in the information. If you're interested in that, please let me know, and I'll put up more stuff on that for everybody to see. And over on Patreon, it's things that are kind of a wide variety of things. Some are going to be interesting to you, more interesting than others. I'll just put it that way. But today, I think this one is going to be something that this is more than a head shaker. Before we get to that one, let's start with the insanity of the day, the silliness. And it's not silly, it's insane, it really is. From Breitbart, did you hear that Disney has labeled Tinkerbell and Captain Hook as potentially problematic? That's right, because they perpetuate negative stereotypes. Are you all still, is anybody out there still supporting Disney? I'll give you a minute to answer. We don't in any way. If you're keeping up with what Disney has become and what Disney does and their stated goals, anybody who is still supporting Disney in any way might want to take a look at it, see why you might not want to. Okay, and it kind of figures into our big story of today, but I'll cover this. The Walt Disney Company reportedly labeled beloved animated characters, including Tinkerbell and Captain Hook from Peter Pan, as potentially problematic as it was preparing to launch the Disney Plus streaming service, noting the characters could necessitate a disclaimer for perpetuating negative stereotypes. What could it possibly be? Ursula from the 1989 movie The Little Mermaid also raised concerns of racism and homophobia. Disney began an extensive review of its film library as it prepared to introduce the streaming service in 2019. Blah, blah, blah. You don't care about that. They flagged certain characters as potentially problematic. Blah, blah, blah. Executives said one of them was Tinkerbell, who raised concern because she is body conscious. She's body conscious. It's been years since I've seen that, but I think I remember her looking at herself in a mirror or something. So Tinkerbell is body conscious, which kind of means that she wants to look good, doesn't it? I'll leave it to you. And she's jealous of Peter Pan's attention. Captain Hook was another potential liability because he would expose Disney to accusations of discrimination or prejudice against individuals with disabilities because he is a villain. So therefore, even though people want equality, there are certain groups apparently that can only be portrayed in a positive light. Try to make that make sense. Okay. On the other, Disney also flagged Ursula the Sea Witch from The Little Mermaid, saying her dark complexion, she was gray or purple or something, wasn't she? Could be construed as racist, and her flamboyant mannerisms could come across as queer-coded, whatever in the world that means, or homophobic. Okay. All right, Disney, your company is collapsing. I wonder why. Second arrest has been made down in that shooting in the mall down at South Carolina. What did they have? They had a shot of my silver tooth. I'll show you a problem here with what the police chief said. This is why we have problems. So where does this come from? This comes from MSN. A second suspect has been arrested in connection. Have you all kept up with this? I interject. You kept up with this? That South Carolina mall shooting? This came after the New York mass shooting, right? Have you heard much about that lately? Which came on the heels of the Sacramento mass shooting. Have you heard much about that? Have we heard all about how it was a white supremacist doing all those? Because it wasn't, right? No, we haven't heard squat, have we? Yeah, it's way down the page so that they allow themselves to say, well, we covered it. No, you didn't. So a second suspect has been arrested in connection to a weekend shooting at a South Carolina mall that left 15 people injured. This was down in, Columbia? I tell you, I'm not going to say anything about that. Marquis Love Robinson, 20, has been charged with 9 counts of assault and battery of a high and aggravated nature, attempted murder, and unlawful carry of a handgun, according to Columbia Police Chief Skip Holbrook. An arrest warrant has also been issued for a third subject, 21-year-old Amari Sincere-Jamal Smith, on the same charges. So I don't remember the first guy's name, but the second guy is Marquise Love Robinson, and our third guy is, I assume it's a guy. I don't know. Amari, is that a man's name or a woman's name? I'm not sure. Amari Sincere-Jamal, or is it a hyphen? He's a hyphenate. Amari Sincere-Jamal Smith. And here's what the chief of police has to say. Does he come out and say, we're going to take care of this stuff, we're not going to? No, he comes out and he says, emotions took over. You had firearms that were introduced into the dispute. Gunfire was exchanged and innocent people got injured. Who talks like that? Did you make your rank in personnel? Probably, or in records. Yeah. Emotions took over. Emotions. Can't control your emotions. You had firearms that were introduced. I didn't have firearms that were introduced. Neither did you all. People pulled guns. How about that, Chief? Can you speak plain English? Maybe if you could speak plain English, you'd be able to shut this stuff down, but you won't because you're so PC, it makes the rest of us sick. Enough of that. Senator Coons says, he's a naturally Democrat. Senator Coons says, U.S. needs to discuss sending troops to Ukraine. Putin will only stop when we stop him. Well, the party who has brought you every war since the Civil War. And somebody said, I said that once before, and they said the Civil War wasn't started by a Democrat, it was Lincoln, who was a Republican. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And if you notice what I said, I didn't say including, I said since. And it wasn't a civil war anyway, it was the War of Northern Aggression. And anybody that, is interested more in that, we can talk more about that. So yeah, he wants to go to war. Naturally, he wants to go to war. Biden wants to go to war. Clinton wants to go to war. All these people want to go to war. They're determined to get us involved in this, but they're doing what always happens. Do you remember how America didn't want to get into the Second World War? America didn't want to get into the First World War. America didn't want to get into Korea. They didn't want to get into the Spanish-American War. They didn't want to get into Vietnam. About the only thing America some wanted to get involved in was the GWOT, Global War on Terror, because it was sold with such high-tech salesmanship, But what they always do is that Americans want nothing to do with these foreign wars, and then they start kind of feeding us more things. We've already heard about the targeting of schools, the targeting of daycare centers, the targeting of hospitals, the women being raped, children being this and that. It's the same thing all the time. I am in no way minimizing the misery of people in a war zone. Know that those things sometimes happen. What I'm saying is they always use those things to gin up emotions in Americans to get us to want to send our kids over there to fight someplace that doesn't threaten us at all. Okay, and that very often we find ourselves on the wrong side. But it makes money for the ones in charge, and that's all that's important, right? So they're floating this out there. He says, we need to discuss. That's what that means is we're going to throw this out there, and then we're going to hear what people are saying. We'll hear what the talk shows are saying about it, stuff like that. And then we will be able, hopefully, we'll see how much we're able to bend the public opinion. If we need to put in more horrendous stuff in order to bend it a little further so that we can do what we want to, then we will. So be ready for that. Be ready for, we're getting closer to war because they want it. Not because it's right, but because they want it. Do you remember we talked, was it last week or the week before, about that med student down, where was it? Was it Wake Forest or I don't remember. Let me scroll. Yeah, a woke medical student was suspended after publicly celebrating the injury of her patient. Let's see. It was Wake Forest. Wake Forest University. So somebody made, I don't know, I'm not even going to get into the article. Del Rosario, okay. Anyway, somebody made a statement that she didn't like about a pronoun, and so instead of just sticking the person once with a needle to draw the blood, she purposefully stuck the needle wrong so that she would have to stick them again because they didn't like what she said about a pronoun. Okay. And then she bragged about it on her, I don't know, Twitter or whatever like it. She bragged about it. Well, they have suspended her. Well, that's only a good step if it precedes prosecution for aggravated assault and battery. We'll see what happens with her. Somehow I think not much will. Here's the story of the day, guys. Here is the story of the day. Have you wondered what set America on the path to the chaos and destruction that we're witnessing today? You could say a number of things. I could say a number of things. It would all come down to the collapse of the family, I think, the collapse of traditional beliefs, traditional values and principles on which our country was based and according to which it was built over 200 years before it started just going down in the toilet faster than anybody can imagine. Well, here's why. This is from the Federalist, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to put the whole thing over on Patreon for anybody who wants to read it. I'll repeat it again because I still have people asking, how do I get to Patreon? It's down there. The link is down there, and or if you don't find the link, you just go to patreon.com/, American version. It'll take you to the page, and it just costs $1, and you'll get all of this stuff and be able to read all the articles and have them so you can send them to friends, because over there I put this same video over on Patreon, and then I'll put the links to everything down below it. Okay, second wave feminists pushed the sexual revolution to end America, and it's working. What in the world is a second wave feminist? I had no idea until, and I still don't. I mean, I didn't read this article with the thought, boy, I wonder what a second wave feminist is. Okay. That pseudo-litany chanted by the 12 women in the upper room has been heard, felt, and suffered by all the world as the family has been destroyed, replaced by a population of noble narcissists. This is an article by Carrie Gress, and it is great. I'm just going to read the first part. There's a lot more to it, but I think the first part is going to give you a fuller understanding of what has been happening in our country. And please send this to your friends. I begin the article. The hottest flashpoint in the culture today is the trans movement, with the mob coming after anyone like J.K. Rowling, who dares to oppose the idea that men can become women and women men. Few are aware that the seeds for this effort was planted decades ago by a small group of women who gathered regularly to promote the creed of Marxism. We live under their triumphant umbrella daily. Now you might be thinking, as was I, what? How could this be? Listen. The Supreme Court confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson is just the latest feather in their cap, as a justice who claims she can't define what a woman is because she lacks a biology degree. Ironically, the new women she is trying to include aren't biologically women, so a biology degree wouldn't actually help her. This group of women, going back to the women we were talking about, the group that huddled together, trying to promote a creed of Marxism, this group of women was led by Kate Millett. I assume I'm pronouncing, I don't know if it's Millett. I'll say, I don't know what I'll say. One of the early grandmothers of feminism's second wave. Here again, I don't know what the first wave was. She was the author of the Sexual Politics, the academic justification for feminism that became the backbone of women's studies programs nationally and was featured on Time magazine's cover twice. Any of you out there, I know some of you are old enough to remember the old a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle junk, right? And that's when it started. Mallory Millett, Kate's sister, has been telling the story of the 12 women Kate brought together in New York City in the late 1960s and early 70s. These are the women who laid the groundwork for second-wave feminism, which gave way to the world of woke. Another lesson in this is me ad-libbing here. Another lesson is, do you want to see what political action will accomplish? We still have people out there on our side who said, well, nothing can be done. The other side gets things done as a result of their activism. The more conservative, the more libertarian are not activists. And so they don't get the things done. We're always playing catch up. We're always playing defense, right? The other side is always involved in their fight, and they are activists in it. Back to the article. It was 1969, and she took me to a meeting at her friend Lilla Karp's place in Greenwich Village, Mallory explained to me for my book. The Anti-Mary Exposed, as at a consciousness-raising, an idea imported from Mao's China, 12 women gathered at a large table. They opened with a litany, a type of litany from the Catholic Church, but this time it was Marxism, the church of the left. The litany went like this. Why are we here today? The chairwoman asked. To make a revolution, they answered. What kind of revolution? She replied. The cultural revolution, they chanted. And how do we make cultural revolution? She demanded. By destroying the American family, they answered. How do we destroy the family? She came back. By destroying the American patriarch, they cried exuberantly. And how do we destroy the American patriarch? She probed. Let me stop here for just a second. Do you all remember when the American white male stopped being held up in esteem in movies, in TV, and in commercials, and started to be made the doofus, the dummy, the one that somehow was smart enough to make the money, but not smart enough to know how it should be used? And everyone, the wife, the kids, were always rolling their eyes at Dad. Oh, Dad, oh, Dad. He's something to be humored, not to be taken seriously. And the American white male, because at that time there weren't a lot of black characters in there, and still, I don't see that black males are being made to be buffoons mostly, but the American white male was made to be a buffoon, something to be laughed at and barely tolerated, certainly nothing to be taken seriously. Do you remember that time? Because that's what changed it. Things used to be very different. So let's get back to her question. And how do we destroy the American patriarch, she probed? By taking away his power. How do we do that? By destroying monogamy, they shouted. How can we destroy monogamy? Their response, by promoting promiscuity, eroticism, prostitution, abortion, and homosexuality, they resounded. Now in the article she says, read that last line again. These were not things that were part of an American culture, although burgeoning then with the sexual revolution. But all of them have been achieved, probably beyond the wildest dreams of those present, by this very specific targeting. And what she was referring to is, read the last line again, by promoting promiscuity, eroticism, prostitution, abortion, and homosexuality. Phyllis Chesler confirmed much of Mallory's account in her 2018 book, Politically Correct is the name of the book, Politically Incorrect Feminist, creating a movement with bitches, lunatics, dykes, prodigies, warriors, and wonder women. That's the name of the book. Chesler, while trying to tell the honest truth of the good, the bad, and the ugly of the feminist movement, reveals much of the story that has been jealously guarded by feminists for decades, that most of the women in the movement were incredibly broken by mental illness and drug abuse. Our country is being led and ruined by broken people, even now. Chesler calls them the lost girls. I want to read that one more time. The feminist movement reveals much of the story that has been jealously guarded by feminists for decades, that most of the women in the movement were incredibly broken by mental illness and drug abuse. Their brokenness wasn't considered a weakness. And for those who are as old as I, if you could remember the beginning of the feminist movement, it really had nothing to do with feminism. It was constructed, supported, and carried forth by women who, I don't want to be unkind here, I remember what Rush said about it, but women who were not doing well socially in the world in which they found themselves, or for whatever reason had some underlying resentment of the world, for whatever reason. I won't get into that, but it was not started by those who were happy and fulfilled and actually accomplishing things in life. You will find very few of these people, although I have a couple that, Camille Paglia, I love her, and Tammy Bruce, I love her. Most of those people are not that accomplished, except in complaining and creating and surviving within nonprofits. Their brokenness wasn't considered a weakness, but the glue that held them together. And we could see the parallels in other things in our society now, can't we? We who only yesterday had been viewed as, I won't say this word here, it's the C word, whores, dykes, bitches, witches, and mad women, we who had been second and third class citizens had suddenly become players in history. The world would never be the same, and neither would we, writes Chesler in her introduction. Speaking specifically of Kate Millett, Chesler wrote this, and then I'm going to stop here. Kate had an S-load, I won't say that word, of charm, and in the beginning a commanding presence. But she also had periods in which she didn't sleep, raged at others, attempted suicide, and exploited her groupies, all the while feeling victimized by them, which she was. She couldn't be counted on to remain lucid at a press conference. She also fell in love and tried to have her way, quite aggressively, with woman after woman, including me. If there's anything that more aptly describes how our country is being destroyed and led in its destruction by a bunch of misfits who on their own could accomplish nothing in this world outside of government and government agencies and not-for-profits. I don't know what is. This was really something to read, and the rest of it is too. I'll put this up there. Think about what's happening to our country. Think about what caused it. You could put in that there were other causes that came along, but really the destruction of the family is the core. And we have groups now whose purpose is and has been the destruction of the family, and they continue. We know who they are. And we know that they've been very successful. And it includes the churches. And certainly one political party. And the other's not doing too much to fight them. Send this to your friends if you can. I'm coming up on the end here. We see our world getting worse every day. We see the challenges. We sometimes wonder whether we're going to be able to pull it out, how we can fight against this. But even if we don't have an immediate game plan on something that will turn the tide, we know that every day, every effort that we make is important, because however we can influence the people in our lives, however we can share this information with other people, we know that we fight for that great middle ground. That this side will always vote one way, this side will always vote another way. The fight is in the middle. Those people who either don't think enough for themselves or just don't want to be bothered and are swayed by the last political commercial they saw. We have to sway them. That's a responsibility given us if we want to pull this thing out, if we want to do anything to save this country. God gave us this country. He blessed this country. And He continued to bless it until this country turned away from Him time after time after time after time. Is it too late? We don't know. There's no way to know that. But it's never time to stop. So I'll leave it with that. If you haven't checked lately, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Please give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. Please share it with your friends. If you'd like to join us, the link down there to Patreon, come join us over there. You can join for $1, or you can give whatever you want. That's up to you. And we certainly appreciate your support on that. Remember that America needs a reversion, probably needs a restoration or a resurrection. But whatever it needs you to be a part of it, and we ask you to be a part of that by being a part of us. So you all have a good day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.